The Swans and Cats may be playing off in a grand final this weekend, but for us, it's our grand finale. For the very last time, hello and welcome to AFL Exchange. Sarah Ollie here with Riley Beveridge and Cal Toomey. End of an era.
It is the end of an era, Sarah. 10 years of AFL Exchange comes all the way down to this. Here we are on a Tuesday night in our rightful place and looking forward to what's going to be a massive week ahead. It's a little bit of sort of Frank Sinatra my way about it all, isn't there? The end is near. We face our final curtain. Regrets, we've had a few.
I'd love to know what the biggest regret is. Two things I'd like to point out about my co-hosts to begin with immediately. Cal, lovely little Robbie Williams number you've got on.
Yeah, I mean, I thought I'd wear it for this one. I mean, when else are you going to get a chance to wear this on anything to do with AFL? So,
and it's an archival piece.
There's not many of these going around anymore. It's 20 years old. 20
nice.
plus, actually. From
Were you a large child or just a small man?
No, just got in anticipation of wanting to wear it. As I said just before, I always knew down the track that Robbie Williams would host or would entertain us at the grand final, an AFL grand final, and that I'd be working at it. So, yeah, it fits still, but 2001 tour. It's my favourite album, Sing When You're Winning. If you know the album cover, he wears this 5 different versions of himself. So number 8 on the back.
Number 8?
Williams.
I like it. And secondly, I went down the highway to Geelong on Monday. Who do you think was the biggest star in Geelong? Who do you think all the fans wanted?
Jeremy Cameron.
Jeremy Cameron, Tom Hawkins,
Tyson
maybe
Stengel.
Paddy Dangerfield or something. No, They wanted Skaz. Everyone wanted their photo with Sarah Ollie. And she duly obliged.
One person did, Riley. One person.
Still good fun, though.
Where was it?
It was
The Cat's
half
Cafe.
cat.
Oh, it was half cat.
No, it wasn't half cat, Riley. And what's going on with your voice? You're very hoarse.
Yeah. No, I've lost my voice, which is good for grand final week, isn't it?
All right. We're down to 2. The Cats and the Swans. Cal, who's going to be the 2022 AFL Premier?
I think it's Geelong. I think their form across a longer period of time has been exemplary. Obviously, 15 in a row so far. I think it's going to be a Sweet 16 on Saturday for them. Geelong and Sydney met so long ago. I think round 2 doesn't really have any real bearing on how we look ahead to this game. And, of course, that was the Buddy 1000 game. I just feel so much confidence and surety, mainly in the key forwards at Geelong. I just think that when you've got 2 weapons like that, you can just depend so much about. And key forwards don't always kick big hauls on grand final day, not always in preliminary finals, but they always, in premiership teams nonetheless, have their moments and make them. And I just have a little bit more faith in those 2. That's not discounting, of course, the Lance Franklin factor. How can you? But those 2 have been far better performed across this year. Look, Buddy was really good over the weekend. Yeah. I thought he played a good game, which was interesting on the back of 2 weeks earlier not playing as well and being beaten by Stephen Mayes. I think it'll be close. I think Sydney is definitely going to be in the game and in with the show for a fair bit, and there's no reason to think they can't be right in it right late in that game. But I think Geelong will be premiers, and I think they deserve the favouritism going in.
Yeah, I agree. For all the reasons you just said there, and I just think they've been the best side all year, and I think they'll have too much quality ultimately on the biggest stage. They've got the A-graders. You look at Dangerfield, Cameron, Hawkins, Selwood, Stewart, Stengel. They've got the role players. They've managed to find a couple this year. Tom Atkins, Zach Guthrie, who's played a really important part down there in the back line. Jed Buse, Brad Close, Brian Myers on the weekend had an awesome game. He was maybe the best player across the entire weekend. It sort of went a bit under the radar a little bit because of probably who he was second to in Patrick Dangerfield. So I just think everything that Geelong's done so well where they haven't been able to win the flag over the last decade, I think it's culminated in this season. I think it's their time. I think Sydney will get their time. I think you look at who performed for them on the weekend with like Cal Mills and Chad Warner and how good they were out of the centre. They'll get their time. I'm just not sure it'll be this year. I think this is what Geelong's been working towards, and I think it'll all culminate in a premiership on Saturday, Arvo.
I think the only thing I would say counter to that is that you never know when you're going to make a grand final again. So the Swans have to approach it like this is their time.
Go on, tip them.
No, I've got to go Geelong still. That is what my head is saying. The heart says Swans. I just wonder, though, what's the better lead-in when it comes to the prelim? Is it a romp against the Lions, a very bruise-free game where you're just having everything go your way? Or is it 1 point nail-biter where for 80% of the game you are in control, but you have to go on and really just hold on to the death there.
How were you up there?
Not
in that
good.
Final quarter?
Not good. I was in the media box, and you have to be contained,
Yes.
which isn't it's not really my forte.
Not everyone's forte. Let I just put up my hand. Not me. I'm fine. But like there are certain people within the fraternity.
Yes.
Name them. Let's go out with
A couple of death slammers.
Let's go out with a bang.
Well, I just internalised everything. So by the last 30 seconds, I think I was shaking. I was just, it was unenjoyable.
Did you get a sense of Collingwood inevitability? That
Oh,
that was
absolutely. I was like, it's happening.
Yeah.
It's happening. I'm sitting next to Josh Gablich, who, of course, is a Collingwood fan as well. And, yeah, you just thought it was going to happen, but somehow the Swans, they did manage to hold on. But, yeah, there's a sense of destiny, I think, about Geelong. They've done all the right things this year. They've had the luxury of resting some of their key players, starting some of their absolute champions on the bench. There's not really a weakness in that team. So I think it will be a good game. It's amazing to think that these were the premiers in 2011 and 2012. 10 years later, like, these clubs are just ultra consistent.
They've been great for a long period of time. Sarah, what will each side need to do to ensure victory?
Well, I think for Geelong, they need to do what they've done. You're going to be in trouble in about half an hour time.
There's a long way to go.
Yeah.
Like, you're only at question 2.
Geelong just need to do what they've
if you're listening at
done.
home, I'm getting emotional, that's why.
He's really not. What they've done all year, and they have to be daring with their ball movement. We saw with the Magpies, when they decided to just go up the guts, have that really quick movement up through the centre of the ground, they were able to pick the Swans apart, and the Swans just seized up a little bit. So I just think the Cats need to keep playing with that dare that has become their trademark of 2022, not in years gone by. For the Swans, they need to play like they did in the first half. And one thing in particular which stood out to me in the first half was quick clearances from the centre, because it makes those Geelong defenders who are so good at intercepting, it makes them more accountable to the man they're on. So I think the Swans need to do that. Tom Hickey's going to be pivotal in that ruck battle as well. We are going to touch on injuries soon, but I also think that second half without Sam Reid structurally, that really hurt the Swans. So I'm not sure what the answer is there if he doesn't play, because I know we're talking about other players coming in, but they're not going to be Sam Reid.
No, and he's struck form, hasn't he?
He has.
It's been a renaissance, really, in terms of his performance, and I think most people would have thought this is likely to be his last year of his career, but he's extended it. He'll get another year, and he deserves that. Just a little thing for me, I think the Swans can't be overawed by the occasion as well. That's a big factor.
Do you think they will be, though?
Well, who knows until grand final day.
Yeah.
Look at the interstate teams or non-Victorian teams that have absolutely bottled it in grand finals in the past. West Coast in 2018 is an absolute outlier.
But it took them a while to get going in that game. They were 5 goals down halfway through the first quarter.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
Sorry. Yeah, they were.
This is fitting for us to go out like this.
Just take a sip of your water.
You're right. They did, but like there's West Coast in 15 and the Swans in 14 and Fremantle
Giants?
in 13, the Giants in 19. So that is a massive factor for me. I know they will have their supporter base there, but every grand final in the end probably has about the same number of supporters anyway. It's more just about the experience of playing the actual venue. So. And then, of course, Geelong played in a grand final. It wasn't at the G 2 years ago, but they still have done that more recently than 16 when the Swans were there. So just a couple little things that I think heading down to Victoria will have to be mindful for how they approach it all.
Just on that, do you think they looked overawed in the second half on Saturday night a little bit by the occasion, or do you think that was more?
I don't think so. I think Collingwood just started to play better as well.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a good game throughout, and they just couldn't put them away. I know 6 goals is getting to that put them away stage, isn't it? But they started to play better. As Sarah mentioned, the loss of Reid changed the dynamic of that game. So that was a factor. But
one young Swan who actually wasn't overawed was Errol Gordon. He laid 3 of the biggest tackles you're ever going to see in the second half. So I don't know. I think some of these players are actually maybe going to have the benefit of being young and maybe
That's true.
not having anything, no monkeys on the back, I guess.
No, that's right. Just before we get to the next question as well, if you can zoom in on this. Can you zoom in, guys? I don't know if you can. This is a biscuit, a cookie that...
I'm going to take a photo
There
of
they are. Look at that. That's a special surprise for our final show. I've never been on a cookie before, so that's exciting.
You made it.
Big thanks to Hayley Campbell at the back who's sorted them out. I'm looking forward to digging into them on the way home. Question for you, Riley.
Yes.
And I'm going to have the whole box.
That doesn't surprise me.
And we're just talking before, how long can these last?
A while,
I think a while.
As long as you're Robbie Williams top.
Oh, I hope
Same,
not.
same colour.
Same colour, little badge there. What are the key matchups that are going to shape this game? Because across the field, there's some exciting ones.
Yeah, I'm looking for two. So I think Tom Papley has the ability to be the game changer, as he was, in a sense, on Saturday night. Kicked 3 really crucial goals. Let everyone in the stadium know about it, which we love. I think at one point he was telling Braden Maynard that he'd already conceded 6.
He was,
So Tom Papley has that
I
ability.
can't wait to watch him play.
I expect Jed Buse to get the match up there. And I spoke to Jed Buse earlier in the week for a story on AFL.com.au. He expects to get the match up as well. It was interesting, actually. He said that he doesn't mind a bit of verbal himself on the field. So if Tom dishes it out, he's more than happy to give it back a little bit.
He'll be dishing it out.
Another little interesting one. Dane Rampy in the past has been the Jeremy Cameron stopper. He's got one of the best records of any key defender in the competition of stopping Jeremy Cameron. He's had the match up on him throughout times at Geelong and GWS for Jeremy Cameron. Kept him goalless earlier in the season in round 2 when they played at the SCG. So that's another one that I think could be pivotal, because if they can hold up Jeremy Cameron, Tom Hawkins is obviously a threat. We know that, but kicks his goals in a different way. And I think in a grand final, it's a harder way to kick goals. He enjoys the wrestle side of things. So I think Jeremy Cameron shapes as being the key to this for Geelong. So if Sydney's able to lock him down through Dane Rampy, I think that has the potential to just about be the biggest matchup of the game.
I'm looking forward to the ruck battle. I mentioned Tom Hickey before, coming up against Reece Stanley. These two played together at St Kilda back in the day, so they'll know how each other moves. Callum Mills, he's just been sensational this final series. I wonder if he's going to not necessarily have a tagging role, but a run-with role, who he will go to. Ryan Clark as well. Where will he go?
I was thinking about Ryan Clark. Do they put him on Stengel? Could they actually reshape everything and put him on Stengel?
It's a big job, isn't it?
Well, it is a big job.
Stengel.
I know he did a good job on Nick Dacos. First 3 quarters, they threw Dacos forward. He didn't go with him. And Dacos helped shift the momentum of that game too.
I've got one for Ryan Clark, but I'll leave it for later in the show.
Right.
Okay, well, exciting. If
you won't have a voice by then.
Justin McInerney, if he gets up, and Smith on the wing is a good battle.
It's a running battle.
Running battle. The jet black hair on both of them. I think all those ones. And Sam Deconian Buddies has got a lot of present v future versus past, all that type of feel about it.
Buddy's almost double his age.
That's true.
We did say we mentioned injuries. I've got a little
And about 1,000 more goals.
Yeah.
I've got a little
Sorry, Sam.
I've got a little
1,000
stat
times
for
more
you
goals.
on injuries here. If Max Holmes doesn't play for Geelong and they replace him with anyone that's older than Max Holmes, now he's 20 years old, so you'd have to think O'Connor, Parfitt,
Menegola,
they'd all be older than him. Geelong will then be fielding the oldest average team in AFL VFL history.
Wow.
Grand final or otherwise.
It's exciting. Well, are you now barracking for him to not play?
No. I mean,
Just to get the stadium. It's going to be touch and go, isn't it? It's a massive call.
same with Sam Reid.
Yes, I just think
don't
the
think so,
Holmes
but
one's a little bit different, though, because he's a runner. Like Stephen May played with a busted hamstring last year in a grand final. Key position is a different... I know Reid's ruck maybe factors into what they do and how they could replace him versus playing with him sore. Holmes is that athletic up and back player and such a fast twitch athlete. I mean, I hope he plays because he's been important for them. Is it Amadi or McLean, do you think, Sarah, if Reid doesn't get up?
Or do they go smaller?
No, I don't think you can go smaller. I don't think you can. I really like Amadi, but McLean was one of the emergencies at the weekend.
Hasn't played since round 8. Played
I know,
every
but
game
it
in
would
the first 8
suggest to me
weeks.
that maybe he is next in line. Who would you play?
I'd play McLean. Did they make a mistake in sending Sam Reid for scans, given how Melbourne played it with Stephen May last year?
Yeah,
They just didn't tell him.
Act on how you feel.
It's an interesting one.
You're listening to AFL Exchange. Time now for things that should happen.
All right, first thing that should happen, we promised this last week. This is what the audience deserves. It is a mega mix of
Oi.
our stingers. Here we go. Roll it off.
Love
Now,
it.
can you name it? That's things that should happen.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
I like it though.
Death taxes, exchange. We've
Exchange,
forgotten about that one. Exchange is a long one.
That's a
obviously.
long one. Yeah.
Is that... hang on a second.
Let's hang on a second, yep. That's I Spy.
Oh, yeah, I Spy.
I don't think I've ever
Jeez,
done
you've
I
never done
Spy.
I
I've
Spy.
never done I Spy. I quite like
That was
This
good,
one.
like the Pink Panther.
Yeah.
That's If I'm.
If I'm, which is coming later.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know what this is. I don't know what this one is.
I like it as well. Ah.
Was that RESOMOTW?
No, I think this is the Exchange Challenge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Yep.
was. Yeah. That was.
What was that?
Was that? That was. Who Says No?
Ah, yes. Oh, well, we're going. I don't know what this one.
There are so many segments I've never done.
I don't remember that one at all.
I don't know what that is. Anyway, that's one of the things that
good.
should happen.
I like that.
More serious one. Things that should happen. We spoke last week about my concept around trading salary.
Yes.
So I've got an alternate sort of
Oh.
advanced view on this. So bear with me. Brodie Grundy, cap enforced exit likely out of Collingwood to Melbourne. So let's say he's on $900,000 for the next 5 years. At the moment, the AFL doesn't allow trades to be connected. So you can only do one trade, and that can't have any bearing on what another trade you might do. So it can't be sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. If you do this trade, we'll do another trade down the track.
Yep.
But things that should happen, they should look at opening that up and saying, well, two trades can be connected, because if it's going to help out two different parties, then why are we blocking this? So in this case, Essendon has $2.5 million or whatever it is sitting in the bank. Essendon say to Collingwood, we'll take Brodie Grundy off your hands for next year. It's almost a loan type of system. We'll take him for 1 year and we'll pay him $2.5 million next year. But to do that, we want your first round pick this year. And then at the end of next year, we'll trade him back to you for the last 4 years of his deal. And at that point, he's only got $2 million left on his deal to go. So it's at $500,000 per season for his final 4 years. And then Essendon get another pick because they've done all the heavy lifting in terms of his contract. And in the meantime, Collingwood can do exactly whatever they want to do this trade period and do their own type of things in terms of their own cap. So things that should happen, I think.
So do Essendon get something when they take him?
Well, they get the pick. They get Collingwood's pick.
Yep. So it's like a loan fee, basically.
Essentially, yeah. And we've written about this last week. We wrote again on Monday around the AFL being much more open now to salary dumping in this upcoming trade period and more lopsided deals being approved. Because in the past, the AFL has knocked back certain deals because they haven't been even on this sort of level or this sort of level without something going back the other way. Now they're just going to be much more open to what can come through because, like I think the industry is starting to see and realise, there's so much benefit to having this salary cap space that is otherwise untapped because you have to reach a certain level of your salary cap payments anyway. So instead of paying your players who aren't good enough to be worth 95% of the cap, the poor teams can save that money, bank it this way, in examples such as this, and use it to pick up extra selections which aren't as valuable to the sides contending. I know your argument is around the rich getting rich, the poor get the picture, but in this situation, if you draft well, you can make things happen and fast track what you're trying to do.
Yeah. I can get my head around that. Things that should happen. I'd send Ryan Clark to Tom Stewart
Oh,
on Saturday.
interesting.
That's wild.
And
Okay.
I don't think he's clearly not going to compete with him in the air. But half the time you don't need him to. You just need to be next to him and to make a contest. So, yes, he might take intercept marks, but he's Geelong's biggest defensive half weapon. Geelong's a great defensive half to transition team in terms of their scoring. He's also their only real intercept player. Sam De Koning does it, but in a different way because he's a key defender that gets the number one key forward of the opposition. I think you take away Geelong's biggest strength, which is winning the ball back from an intercept manner, and you do that via Ryan Clark. I don't think he's a natural matchup for him, clearly because of his height, but I think he can play the role and at least bring the ball to ground and take away one of Geelong's biggest strengths.
All right, John Longmire, if you are listening, things that should happen and
From
mine's...
one horse to another.
Hey, I like it. Things that should happen and mine's pretty short and sharp. Forevermore, the Swans need to play their home finals at the SCG. It was absolutely rocking there on Saturday twilight. Also a great fixture for the SCG. Just looks so beautiful there when the sun sets over those old stands.
They will now, though, won't they? Given
Yeah.
the restructured sort of ground and
Yeah.
size of the joint.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Swans fans turned up in droves. The Magpie fans too. They were very loud. But
The atmosphere was
it was awesome.
coming through the TV.
Yeah, it
Siggy
was
was
awesome.
stressed.
Siggy was stressful.
I was Siggy. We were all Siggy.
Why is he covering his eyes when he's like a genuine method? Well, if there is someone inside Siggy, they're a genuine method actor, aren't they?
Oh, Siggy.
He's got some glasses there that he could have put down.
All right, on Sunday night was the Brownlow. What caught your attention, Riley?
It's fitting that this happened this year.
It is. I know where you're
Because-
going with this.
I've been peddling this theory for 4 years, and it hasn't worked the entire time I've been
Oh,
peddling
well,
it on
maybe
AFL
I'm not.
Exchange.
Maybe I'm not sure where you're heading with
The
this.
dominant midfielder in a bottom 10 side that wins 10, 11
You
games
have
this
actually.
year wins the Brownlow medal.
You finally got it.
I finally got it. I thought that was the best Brownlow count
Yeah.
in a long time, considering the amount of players that could have won it with 2 games to go, considering the manner in which Patrick Cripps polled his 3 votes in the last game of the season, essentially.
Yeah.
It was awesome. What caught my eye from a winning perspective, I think it suggests that Carlton still needs to support Patrick Cripps better through the midfield, I think. He polled so many votes in big defeats. So he gets 3 votes in a 35-point loss to Fremantle. He gets 3 votes in a 29-point loss to Adelaide. He gets 3 votes in a 15-point loss to Richmond. He gets 3 votes in the round 23 loss to Collingwood. For too long, he's been the only player capable of standing up in those types of games. I think once you get a more even balance, I thought it was pretty telling that a side like Geelong, for example, their highest polling midfielder was Cam Guthrie, and he got 12 votes.
Well, that's nearly as many as West Coast got.
Exactly.
That's extraordinary.
That was extraordinary.
15 votes.
Patrick Cripps nearly doubled them.
That's an extraordinarily low amount of Brownlow votes. I know it
took
was a
a
poor year, but
different tact with this. What caught my eye was Jeremy Cameron with the watermelon.
That was great.
At one point. The Bulldogs boys.
I ate watermelon
with the
with a fork.
glasses. Yeah, that's fair.
It's hardly
That's fair.
George Costanza eating
No,
Snickers
that's true.
with us.
The Oz kicker of the year. He was very cute. Little Archie.
yeah, he's involved in the. He's thrown his hat in the ring for the Essendon coaching process.
Sure. Why not?
And he's actually just withdrawn from the race.
He's a ripper.
Yeah.
He is an absolute ripper. What caught my attention? Ben Keys, another fitting moment for AFL
Yes.
Exchange. Pidgeot, one of our favourites on AFL Exchange, leading the Brownlow with 9 votes.
Oh, that's right.
Was incredible, and that is a really fitting moment for us this week. Jai Simpkins' dad introducing himself as Clayton Oliver's under-16s coach while Jai was in the room.
Yeah.
So he's Marupna coach. That was funny. And just a little one. Carl Amon voting ahead of
Yeah.
Connor Rosie was a bit of an obscure one, but there's always those stories.
We love those ones. Sarah, what should the expectations be for Collingwood next year?
Well, I think they've got to aim high, and they've probably got to aim once again for a top 4 finish. The only thing I will say, though, is that Collingwood just defied the stats all year. We know that they won, 11 games by 2 goals or fewer. That's going to be tricky to do again. And because they did find out in the final series that there is a little bit of luck with these close games. I'm not saying all of them, but there is, because they lost to Geelong by 6 points and they lost to the Swans by 1 point. They were on the wrong side of the ledger there. But it does show how close they are, because they lost by a combined 7 points to the 2 teams that are playing off in the grand final. So I think aim high. The expectations should be top 4 again. Craig McRae will certainly have very lofty expectations. I don't know, though. It's going to be tricky to back up this year, because they went on an incredible run, and who knows if they can repeat it next year, Cal.
No, nothing's guaranteed, is it? You always start at the same level, don't you, as everyone else next year. Extraordinary year, wild ride, and such a surprise as well that once you get so close, I don't know if it becomes more disappointing when you're actually there like, oh, God, we could actually win this. The list movement is clearly coming. Bobby Hill, Billy Frampton, Dan McStale all going to be there. Braden Friorini, I think, is a likely addition as well. Jordan De Goey expected to stay. Brodie Grundy will be on the move. Nick Dacos, I know I talk about him every week, so why not again? I think just for the final time on AFL Exchange, clearly his next area of his career is going to be as midfielder.
Next year,
I think.
you reckon?
And also, just watching the Brownlow medal on Sunday night, and I've said this for a long time, probably never said it publicly that much, but he's a certainty to win a Brownlow medal,
Yeah.
isn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
If he's bowling like that in year one.
yeah.
Yeah, 12 votes, 11, 12 votes, I think.
Yeah, exceptional season. So, but I think his midfield time will increase naturally next year, and it should. Another year in the gym. The first time we met Craig McRae, Craig looked at his muscles in his arms and said, "Those need to get bigger." And since then, this year he's gradually gotten stronger. But another pre-season, I think we'll see a bit more of Nick through the midfield, and that'll be a pretty good addition in there. But look, there's a lot happening from a list point of view, and a lot of that'll be interesting too.
Can I ask both of you?
If you can get it out.
I know he hasn't had the type of seasons that he'd want to 2020, 2021.
Yeah.
But was there not a point on Saturday when they were getting smashed first half that you just thought, I wonder if Brodie Grundy would turn this tide a little bit? Both out of the ruck work where they got smashed in clearance, around the ground where they just needed an extra body at certain points. I just wonder, like, he's a pretty good player.
Oh, he's a very good player.
And I think it's been lost in all of the fact that they've gone so well without him this year, just how good he can be still.
So there's cap implications.
Yeah, clearly.
To all of that. And the De Goey factor in it has been significant too. I mean, who was to know 3 rounds in, 10 rounds in, mid-year particularly, if De Goey was going to stay there. But his second half of the season has been fantastic. So, and is the times more with the low-budget ruckman? Is that what the game has gone to? Is Max Gawn?
Max Gawn was the best ruckman to
I was
win
going
a
to say,
premiership
is
in a
he
long
the
time.
exception to the rule over a long period? I mean, Nathan Vardy won a premiership against Brodie Grundy 4 years ago. For West Coast, that's no denigration, Nathan Vardy, but like in terms of levels of payments and all these type of things. So I see what you're saying.
Cal, Brisbane.
Well, hold on, just on that. Well, this like Tom Hickey, who was as we've called him all year, bargain basement, is going to be playing off for a premiership against Reece Stanley, who's in the same boat.
Correct. Yep. And there's going to be 5 or 6 rucks change clubs again.
Yeah. Led by Josh Dunkley.
Nice. I forgot he rucked in 2020. That was a moment.
Cal, Brisbane. Lately, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Or actually, I guess if you don't make the grand final, you're more like the flower girl. But like, what are they going to do to make the leap in 2023?
I mean, yeah. Okay. Well, Josh Dunkley helps, doesn't he? By nominating them, long-term deal, and picked them ahead of Port Adelaide and staying at the Bulldogs. Essendon's also had a 5-year offer in front of him, but he's gone north. Will Ashcroft joins as well, and Jasper Fletcher as well. So I think their jump is going to come clearly within personnel. In saying all of that, the personnel they've got is really good as well.
Yeah.
And this is 4 years now of finals failures, really. I know they got to the preliminary final, they beat the Hoodoo, all that type of thing, but this is still an inability to get to the final dance.
Yep.
So
The big dance, as they call it.
the big dance, or the last dance. So that was something that I sort of left watching that preliminary final over the weekend thinking they've got personnel covered, and I think the talent there is covered. Is it a tactical thing? Is it a system thing? I know Luke Hodge a few weeks ago did speak around the Lions being so talent-based more than system, and I found that interesting given he would have been a part of that unit for a couple of years there, and obviously they were involved. He was there involved in that final series that I think that one they lost to the Giants actually. So just on the Dunkley trade and how that actually gets done, a lot of questions around how can they do it with Ashcroft Fletcher. And I get the questions because the bidding system is very complex to understand, even on a very basic level. But here's an idea. Brisbane trades out pick 5. So the Dogs want 2 first-round picks for Dunkley. They went for 2 first-round picks 2 years ago. He's a much better player than he is two years ago. In saying that, he was contracted for 2 years ago. Now he's out of contract. But he's not a free agent. So he has to get to Brisbane, a trade's going to have to be reached
Yeah.
because he's not going to get there in the preseason draft. So they want 2 first-rounders. Pick 15 is going to be a part of that, I would think. Then whatever the McStay compensation pick is, I think they have to get that one up somehow to as close to 20 or so. Now, that's not right in the first round, but it's getting there. It's getting there, and it might be as close as they get. Then they just have back-end picks, but they trade their future first-round pick, so their next year's 2023 first-round pick, to Gold Coast, or Collingwood have a stack of picks in the middle part of this year's draft, pick up a trio of picks for that selection next year, and then that way you can match a bit on Ashcroft and then go into deficit on your first-round pick next year. But because they'd already traded out their first-round pick next year, it only pushes back your second-round pick. So basically, you'd just be nudging that one back, and at that point, who cares? So you can go into a deficit, you can get these things done, and I think the future first-round pick is going to play a big part in how this one gets achieved for all their work.
Do you think Ashcroft can have the same impact next year that, say, Dacos has had at Collingwood?
Yeah, he's different to Nick.
Yeah.
He's different. He's more like Sam Walsh than he is Nick Dacos.
Okay.
But Sam Walsh had a fantastic impact in year 1 too. He was a rising star. So I think it's more the Walsh impact than the Dacos impact, because I think looking at Walsh and Dacos, they're a very different impact as well in terms of their influence on games in year 1. Nick was so clearly a game changer from day one for Collingwood and a game influencer. And I think Walsh and I think Ashcroft will be game impactors rather than changes from sort of that first point. And you would watch Walsh is just as closely. In that first year, I don't think he was changing games the same way that Nick does. And I think Ashcroft will be a bit similar. But, gee, his numbers stack up so well, Will Ashcroft, and it's been a phenomenal year. He actually got reported and suspended for a week over the weekend in the NAB League, but he took the early place, so he's not ruled out of playing in the Championships game on Thursday. So that would have been a bit of a rough ending for him.
All right, you're listening to AFL Exchange. Time now for If I.
Oh, we're back.
We're back to the
Stinger City.
fantastic Stingers.
Riles, you kick us off.
Well, I'll go last, actually, because I've got one
Okay.
that leads into the next question.
All right.
All right. If I'm Essendon, I wouldn't have had James Hird be a part of the coaching process. Now, the Bombers are going through a process they want to show is not an in-house one. That's why they've got these people from outside Essendon to look around and be really crucially over the detail and separate to their external review, which is ongoing as well at the moment. And this does nothing to do with the saga. I think that's been and gone long enough. This has everything to do, though, and I've heard other people talk about this as well, around the fact that it just hasn't been in the coaching system and environment on a nearly consistent level at all for the best part of 9 years. So he's coached 1 year out of the last 9. That was 2015. Left at the end of that season, and only minimal part-time work this year with the Giants, which was in a leadership capacity essentially until the last 10 weeks of the year. I don't think that's enough to be a part of the process. Now, I also think that being a part of the process has now created an atmosphere within Essendon fans that feel like he's a very, very good chance to be a coach. And I could be wrong. He might well be. If the likes of Tim Watson saying that they'd be very surprised if he's coached, then I think I would be very surprised if he's coached. But I just think that it's created an atmosphere where it's going to be whoever gets the role would be picked ahead of Hird, whereas I don't think it had to be that way.
That's a good point. There's no real comparison to him. Like, there's no one that has done this before that has got a job when they've been in his position when they haven't.
I mean, that's right. Brett Ratton went back to be an assistant for a long time there. Michael Voss basically ran the inner workings to some degree of Port Adelaide there for a couple of years under Ken Hinkley's tutelage. So I think that's where those guys won back their positions, and I'm all for Hird putting up his hand. He's absolutely entitled to that, and as I say, it's got nothing. In my opinion, it's not to do with the saga. It's about to do with the saga part and how much coaching he's sort of been at the forefront of there. Ultimately, I think if Brad Scott wants the job, then he's the right fit for them. I think he's the perfect choice. But obviously, there's a decision that has to be made there. We spoke last week around the GPS, the gravitas, presence, and success. I think he's got all that. I think when players went to North Melbourne from other clubs, they usually played and pretty much always played their best footy. Jared Waite, Sean Higgins, who retired today, played his best footy under Brad. And I think
Even Jasper Pittard was really good for that one, couple of seasons.
I think he's got that factor behind him to be obviously a good option for them if it goes that way.
If I'm Sander Koning or whichever defender goes to Lance Franklin this Saturday, I'm not attempting to rub off the old goanna oil a la Braden Maynard. It didn't work. It fired up the big bud. Just leave him alone.
Is that like the headband?
Yeah, the Bristol.
Yeah.
It was unusual, wasn't it?
Was.
I didn't mind the byplay, though. It was fun.
I kind of have thought it myself. Like, he's a very oily
Yeah.
operator, big bud.
Oily operator. The double O, Riles.
Operator.
If I'm in charge of the PR team of whoever plays the 2023 Grand Final pre-match entertainment, I think I've got the hardest job in the world because Cal's not even going to mention me after this year.
Good luck.
Good luck trying to pump that up.
I've got some ideas for next year. But it's going to be a hard act to follow, as they say.
And that brings us to this question, Cal.
Ew.
What will be the highlight of Robbie Williams' pre-game show?
Well, he always has said the commandments of a Robbie Williams show are thou shalt start with let me entertain you and thou shalt finish with angels. So
How many commandments, or are they the two?
I think they're two, and yeah, there's a few others. But look, I think it's going to be fantastic. He's spoken about it being. He's done a bit of media here, there, and everywhere promoting his latest album, 25, which is a re-recording of his greatest hits with an orchestra band. He's spoken a little bit about it being about a 19, 20-minute set. So that gives him options. That gives him options. I know Gil McLaughlin's said today that he will be joined by someone, but he wouldn't say who.
Oh.
Is it Kylie? He hasn't done kids with Kylie very much at all. It's only ever happened a couple of times.
Is it Cal? 'Cause I've seen you do karaoke, Cal.
Yeah. Better man.
What would you, if you got invited by Robbie Williams onto stage, what would be your go-to? If he said, Cal, come up here, mate, come up here, you get the choice of whatever we're singing now.
Rock DJ is me with the floor show kicking with your torso. That would be a good one to do because everyone knows that one.
Yeah.
Millennium's a good fun song. I'm interested to see what he plays though, because there's a few options. He's done some medleys before. There might be a bit of a medley sort of operation potentially. So I'm excited. He hasn't done many shows recently. He played a show in Munich a couple of weeks ago to 100,000 people. So I do wonder, and he's facing the media on Thursday. I do wonder what it's like to become just accustomed to 100,000 people. Like that's just your normal.
Yeah.
That's not going to be it's a big event, but like how many times has he done that? So yeah, it's exciting.
It's going to be fun.
What are you looking forward to?
Out of all the Robbie songs, yeah, Rock DJ. I really hope it's Kylie, though. I really hope she shows up.
Well,
I'm
it'd be
quite
part
a big
of the fun, wouldn't
Kylie
it?
fan.
Can I just say the instrumental version of Let Me Entertain You, which has taken over from Lose Yourself at the MCG at three-quarter time when the games are close, is actually a very good pump-up song. I didn't realise how much the instrumental version was actually like, okay, let's get into this. They played it at three-quarter time with Geelong Collingwood as the players were coming out of their huddles, and it was very close that day in the qualifying final. And it was very like, okay, let's get into it. Like much more than Lose Yourself was.
Imagine if he just comes out and plays 5 Take That songs. Just back for good, a 20-minute version.
Oh, yeah, no, that won't be happening. Hey, just on the music, is that being totally scrapped from the grand final? Or is it just after goals?
No, just after goals.
Just after goals.
What's up, pussycat?
Yeah,
Me and
that
Cal were there.
not being played.
We were there on Friday night, and every time it came on, me and Cal just gave each other a little look. Just, what's new?
A look of
Pussycat?
disdain.
What's new, pussycat? So no, what's up? What's up, pussycat? What's up, Sarah?
Hey.
Give us your final tip. This is the last ever question on AFL Exchange. What's your final tip? Your margin, Norm Smith winner, and who's your first goal kicker for the grand final of 2022?
We'll stuff it. I'm just going to go full nuff here.
Do it.
Swans by 8 points. Tom Papley, you
Yes.
kick that first goal. Callum Mills for Norm Smith. Get it done.
Like it.
Embrace it.
I've gone Geelong by 15 points.
Ooh.
I've gone Tom Stewart Norm Smith because I don't think Horse will be listening to me and putting Ryan Clark on him. And I've gone Tyson Stengel as my first goal kicker.
Nice one. I think Geelong by 22 points, Jeremy Cameron for the Norm Smith medal and Tom Papley for the first goal, which would be quite a scene. He'd do a lap.
celebration.
He'd do a lap.
He will be.
I
He'll be
actually think
still
he'd do a lap.
going at the next centre bounce.
Did you see the vision?
He might get on with Robbie if he had the chance.
That's true. That's true, actually. Did you see the vision of a VFL player called Max Pescud a couple of weeks ago?
The Southport player?
Yes, where he kicked the goal and he just literally, there was a gate at Southport and it was open, he just ran through. He ran in, was fist pumping on the way in, kicked the goal, ran through the gate, was jumping around with the fans, then ran off, a few more fist pumps, ran off to the bench and spewed his guts out. There was a little bit of Papley about it. The other thing about the Norm Smith, it's not. I think the Norm Smith is one of the few awards where
Not midfielders?
Tom Stewart, Jeremy Cameron, it can often go in a different way because us media types think we're
Above it all.
above it all. In saying that, I gave 3 to Christian Petrarca last
You did
year.
give 2 to Fritter, though, didn't you?
Did give 2 to Fritter.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, just a quick one.
Yes.
Just before we get to our feedback, want to thank everyone for listening, not only listening, but being a part of the show over the last 10 years. A few people who deserve shout-outs as we get through this. Joey, our producer this year, thanks for all your help. Lockie, Jamie, Haley, Jace, Phil and the team here at AFL House. It's been great fun doing the show in our studio since we come in here. Big thanks to Jay Mueller for his support as well of AFL Exchange and to the many, many hosts who have been
Who have come before us.
They crawled so we could run. A big shout out, especially to Jack Haley, who was our producer on AFL Exchange, the producer of AFL Exchange for 9 years, and saw it grow from a little podcast in a edit suite somewhere out there to whatever we are in here and whatever we've made it become. So, congratulations to everyone involved, and we've loved being a part of it. So, yeah, it's nice to be finishing. A lot of people have said why.
Yeah.
PARTY, because we want to.
Yes.
It's just
We're doing it on our terms.
Yeah, I think we appreciate all the questions saying why. Well, it's just time for a bit of a change, and we'll see what comes next year. But we'll all be here, and different stuff will be popping up. But we're looking forward to ending on a high. You want to go one early before one too long.
Yeah. I've got just a few more thank yous. Just as part of this, I've written them down because I thought they might get a bit too long. But people that have played a pretty influential part of AFL Exchange the last few years. So to Tom Green, Ben Keys, Paul Seedsman, Farron Ray, Callum Chambers, the Ruckman, Cam Zerha, David Butterfin, who's still talking, Kevin Sheedy's joke book, Taj Woden,
I forgot about Sheeds' joke book. We could finish on a joke from you.
Cal's mate from the DMAs, Barmy's backpack, Dante Exum, who was unbelievable
Johnny
on the
Tilks
show
is
at one point.
Yeah, that's right, actually.
Steve-O's Unicorn, Hosk, former 18 Carlton player Jordan During, and of course, to Siggy.
What about Will
Siggy.
Sparks?
Hi, Will Sparks. Michael Beer, everyone who did an intro at some point in time. We thank you all. And the best part of AFL Exchange over the last few years has clearly been responding to our many listeners on Instagram who have got in touch with us. So thank you if you have left a message for us. We do really appreciate it.
A few messages that did come through over the last couple of days since we made that shocking announcement that stunned listeners across the country.
The world.
Fans were reeling. Circus Fan, your combo of serious analysis and knowledge with humour and quirks and lots of laughs will be sorely missed. Go well. Cone, you absolutely honoured to be the last ever question on Exchange Extra last week.
A great
That is
question.
An honour. Put that in your Twitter
Good on
bio.
you, Cone.
Been listening to you guys. Super sad to hear it. And Angus, a crime the show is finishing. I was about to read a crime show is finishing. The perfect balance of serious reporting, analysis, and fun. Adlo for the last show. Now this is a segment.
This might have been one of the intros.
Sarah, we had a segment. It was short-lived. It was through a lot of things came and went in 2020. This is our short-lived banner segment.
Because, Sarah, we went through the entire COVID lockdown, so we did about 400 episodes that year.
Yeah, we did that. Literally about 40. This is the banner. This is the banner. Things that should happen for the pod's final wish. The 2023 All-Australian forwards, Siggy and Darcy Parish.
Very good, very good.
Thomas, thanks for being the GOAT podcast. That's very nice. Bo, thanks for giving me something to listen to the past few years. By far away the best footy podcast. We agree. Angus, things that should happen. Exchange should do a Cochrane and Rewalt and go around one more year. We won't be doing that. We'll be doing a Kane Lambert and going out with three flags. But thanks, everyone.
And what about Hamish? Thanks for the wonderful company. The best AFL pod by more than double the width of Seedsman's ones.
That's a long way.
That's all from us on AFL Exchange. We won't be back next week, but AFL Trade Radio will be, so make sure you join in. It's going to be a ripping grand final on Saturday. Go you Mighty Bloods, and thank you so much for joining us.
See you
on
on
AFL Exchange.
Let's get into it.